A group of friends are traveling to the Karmapalooza Music Festival, where 20 years ago there was a series of brutal murders inspired by the 7 deadly sins from the Bible. The killer was never found, but the police will have a second chance, because our company may become the next victims. Their car breaks down on the way, so the guys have to spend the night in a country house, where they are hunted by an unknown psychopath. Marcus Dunstan is one of those horror makers, who, let's call it that, is interesting to follow, because from time to time he makes very worthy things, and most importantly, does not stop his creative search, despite the fact that he has been working in the genre for 20 years. We first heard this name in the mid-noughties, when Dunstan paired with his future regular partner Patrick Melton to write the script for the comedy Horror Feast, which later grew into a trilogy, and then became one of the writers of the fourth, most underrated part of the franchise Saw, which cleverly rebooted the film series and sent it to a new round of development. Together with Melton, they wrote the scripts of several more parts of the cycle, from the 5th to the 7th. However, the main triumph awaited Dunstan later, in 2009, when Dunstan made his directorial debut with the slasher The Collector, which became one of the most significant events in the genre of the new century. Grim, brutal, vicious, and genuinely entertaining, it was a hard-hitting movie with a memorable villain and a charismatic protagonist, and Dunstan almost managed to maintain the level of the original in the sequel The Collection, released 3 years later. However, after this movie Dunstan significantly reduced productivity. In the 10th years he directed, in fact, only one film, an atmospheric thriller The Neighbor, and in the 20s he suddenly switched to a fundamentally different style, making as a director for the Channel Epic's youth horror comedy Unhuman about a group of teenagers on a bus trip, who found themselves in the epicenter of a zombie epidemic. The movie was met quite indifferently, but Dunstan didn't jump to conclusions and stayed in the same genre for his next project, All My Friends Are Dead. 4 years ago, a cool comedy slasher under the same title from Poland came out on Netflix, and while these two movies share similar motifs, as both are set in a big house where someone carves up a bunch of teenagers, Dunstan's movie has nothing to do with Polish flick. Although it tries to inherit its main thing, a jaunty and colorful style, which, however, characterized Unhuman as well. The main characters of the movie are primarily bloggers and influencers, and All My Friends Are Dead, the original title of which includes a hashtag abbreviation, deliberately tries to match the vibe and rhythm of modern social networks. Super-speed editing with bizarre transitions, clever visual tricks, a gaudy color palette, absurd black humor and characters even more stereotypical than in the genre parody Cabin in the Woods. Dunstan uses everything that can catch the attention of younger generation. It's a classic example of a film in which style does not just prevail, but defines everything, and that's both its virtue and its pain. The thing is that the picture, no matter how catchy and striking it is, does not replace the story, and here the story, even if formally present, is reduced to flashy individual scenes, satirical puns and twists for the sake of twists. All this brings back memories of the youth slashers of the late 90s, when Scream was followed by a wave of jaunty but stupid clones, whose authors did not quite realize that the phenomenon of Scream is not in the unexpectedness of its final twist and not in its bloody murders, but in a clever and subtle game with the rules and laws of the genre. All My Friends Are Dead also tries to play with the rules and laws of the genre, but in a slightly different way, trying to figure out if they can be simplified, dried up to the level of TikTok conventionality. The answer is logical: yes, it's possible, but then you won't get a movie, but just a lip-sync reel that you forget as soon as you scroll through the feed.